Oh, yeah. Okay. Hello? Can I tell her it's calling? Okay, hold on. They're still working, huh?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We're actually pushing out to Facebook Live as well. I'd like to welcome you once again to our third Chamber City County Connects You teleconference. Today's teleconference is sponsored by Craig Sorensen of Impressive Sign and Designs. I'd also like to ask all of you to please mute your video and or telephone at this time. I thought I had it set up to mute everyone. I will go to it right now. There we go. I apologize for that. So these teleconferences are brought to you to learn about the resources being made available to those adversely affected by the COVID-19 outbreak, as well as other relevant community updates. We strive to bring you updates that happen and invite diverse panelists and report firsthand information from their agency. My name is Doyle-Enneking. I am the CEO and president of the Puget Sound Chamber of Commerce. Our panelists today are Dr. Anthony Chen, the Director of Health for the Tacoma-Pierce County Health Department, House Representative Chris Gildon, Washington State House Representative 25th District. We have Betty Capestany, Director of Economic Development, Pierce County, and Gary Wescott, Economic Development Specialist, Pierce County 19 Business Impact Point of Contact. We have Captain Darrin spokesman for the Pierce Fire and Rescue, along with Renee McClain, the CFO of the Washington State Fair. Our format will be as follows. Each panelist will provide an update, and then we will open it up to questions from our listeners. You may email your questions or utilize the chat function on Zoom. The email is admin, at Puyallup Sumner Chamber of Commerce. We also are pushing out to Facebook Live, and potentially those using that way want to respond through that, and we'll see how well we do at multitasking. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. It is important to make mention that on each of these calls, we have state representatives, members of county and city council. We're all in this line together. All have similar questions. It's important for our representatives to be part of this dialogue. Following many of these calls, they are reaching out to help answer your questions and find solutions. So please know that those of you on the line are making a difference, and your takeaways are turning into action, and that's the best we can hope for. So let's get started. We have the privilege of having Dr. Anthony Chen with us today to talk about status updates on the local health response to COVID-19, discuss current cases, what they're doing, what they're planning for, and to report on their growing list of resources. Dr. Anthony Chen, thank you so much for being with us.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, great. If at any point you're having trouble hearing me, let me know and I'll put on my headset and microphone. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. How many minutes should I expect to take?
You can take 10 minutes if you like.
Okay, great. So the current situation in Pierce County right now is that COVID-19 transmission is widespread. We're seeing cases in all areas of the county. In Washington, as of March 31st, there are almost 6,000 cases and 247 deaths. Almost 69,000 people across the state have tested negative. In Pierce County, as of today, we have 498 cases and 7 deaths, and about 5,300 people have been tested. If you go on our website, which is tpchd.org, which is Tacoma-Pierce County Health Department, tpchd.org/coronavirus, you can see our daily report, which comes out at 2 o'clock every day. Just be aware that the state is experiencing some technical difficulties. So in the next day or two, you may see a significant jump in the numbers as the state comes back up in its connectivity. So if you see a spike in the next few days, don't get too alarmed. It's probably just the state coming back online. Just want you to be aware that Department of Defense now no longer wants us to include Joint Base Lewis McChord, so that will make some small shifts in our numbers. But otherwise, we're trying to reconcile our different data sources and continue to update the county on where we are. So there are a lot of things that we've been working on. Some of them, have come through the governor. As you know, we're all under the stay-at-home order. That is a very important public health intervention at this time. We want to keep the curve, and you've probably heard the term flatten the curve. And the point there is, if we don't do anything, especially because this is a new virus and there's very little immunity in the community, we could see some very rapid increases in people getting sick. And while 80% of people will get better, we don't want everyone to get sick all at the same time, because that will probably overwhelm our healthcare system. And the idea is, if we can kind of slow the spread down, we can flatten this curve, spread it out a bit, reduce the number of people sick at any one time, help the healthcare systems manage the load they have so that we can move forward and keep people as healthy as possible. So part of the strategy for us in all of this is, when there is no cure, when we don't have a miracle drug or a vaccine, public health for centuries has known what to do, which is basically you find the people who have the illness, you make sure that they get isolated if they're sick. People who've been exposed should be quarantined so that they're not spreading the illness, and that we're keeping an eye on them. In this situation, one of the key strategies there is testing. We are gradually improving access to testing. You may be aware that from March 21st to the 25th, we had a special event at the Tacoma Dome where we tested just under 1,000 people. This was a great partnership. FEMA supplied the tests, but we had state and many local partners as part of this. Just to let you know, during that event, 98% of the tests were negative. We only had a 2% positive rate. We know that statewide, the positivity rate is running around 8%. Pierce County, it tends to run about 5%. The largest group of people who are testing positive are still healthcare, people involved in the healthcare arena. However, we're also very concerned about people who live and work in long-term care facilities or nursing facilities. You may have seen that there was some press about what to do with the leftover kits. It is good news that we learned yesterday that FEMA will allow us to distribute these kits throughout the county. We have already started to do some prioritization. We want to make sure that the test kits are available, especially in rural areas which are harder for people to access care, and certainly making sure that even the small medical practices have access to this as well. So some of the other things we're looking at in our strategies, what I was talking about was the testing so that we can do case investigation, get people into isolation, quarantine, or treatment as they need it. We know that as part of that, we're going to be needing temporary care centers because for some people, if they need to observe isolation or quarantine, they may not have a safe place for them to do that. So for example, many people may have elderly parents that if they were sick, they would not want to get their elderly parents sick because we know that people over 60 and those with chronic medical conditions tend to have more complications from this illness. So we want to make sure that there's a safe and supported place for people to go if they either need to recover from their illness or if they're observing quarantine, that that they can be supported and observed so that they can make sure that they're not getting sick, or if they are getting sick, that they get the proper care. So in addition, these sites will relieve pressure on hospitals. We currently are looking for 3 sites in the county. The executive is committed to ensuring that there's access. So we're looking at a site in East Pierce, one in Central Pierce, in Tacoma, I-5, the central core of the county, and one in West Pierce. And we started at looking at more than 80 sites. We were very pleased to see that many property owners were stepping forward and offering their properties for us to use. And we are, the place you've probably seen in the news, the place that we're closest to opening, it will be in Tacoma. There obviously is a long process that we're committed to, of course, checking in with city officials, engaging with elected officials, engaging with the community, making sure all their concerns are addressed. And we feel that we're very close to be able to move forward on the Tacoma site. Separately from that, as you know, there are very few shelter facilities. And just to give you an idea, one of the shelters in our community is the Tacoma Rescue Mission. I believe their normal capacity is in the order of about 160 beds a night. However, if they were to go to the 6-foot social distancing recommendations, that would drop to about 50. So you can imagine right now they're scrambling. You've probably seen that, they have been able to move to, I'm blanking, one of the schools has allowed them to use their gym. I'm blanking on the name right now, but we've also been working with other areas, other community partners. For example, Salvation Army had closed the shelter. They reopened it to help take on the load of those living homeless. So these are what we're calling temporary expansion centers. And it is to allow the shelters to have a little bit more of capacity. And then also, if people have been exposed or become ill with COVID-19, these would be places where they might be able to stay without getting other people in the shelters infected. So those are just some of the things that we're doing as a health department. I think you're all aware that we have closed customer service at our building. Many of the services that we provide, such as permitting, can be done online if people still need a birth certificate, and they do for many reasons, or a death certificate, that can be done online. We will still, on a case-by-case basis, still arrange with individuals if for some reason that we have to actually deliver to them in person. But many of our services are still available online. Just to give you an idea, we have about 280 employees. Over 100 of them are currently activated for the coronavirus, COVID-19. incident, and we're working very closely with Department of Emergency Management as well as first responders, law enforcement, and many other partners from throughout the county. So with that, I think that's right about 10 minutes, and happy to take any questions if you have time for that.
Okay, we will be monitoring the chat site, also our emails again, admin@puyallupsumnerchamber.com if you have any questions for Dr. Chen, but thank you so much. It's nice to have representation out from the Department of Health. Thank you so much for being here. So our next speaker will be Representative Chris Gildon. I believe you're unmuted, Chris.
Okay, on. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, perfect. So, hey, thank you all for joining this call today. And I'd also like to thank our host. You guys are doing a great job of bringing people together and keeping people informed during this critical time. So today I'd like to give just a very short legislative update. And then I'd like to follow that with some kind of just some non-political comments that I'd really like to share with you. So for the legislative update, you know, the governor, he declared the emergency on February 29th. He's extended that declaration, and he's also issued a number of proclamations talking about additional actions that he's taken. Now, I get a lot of questions about this. Does he have the power to do this? Yes, he does. He has the power to do this. He has broad authority during an emergency. The legislature does have some oversight ability, and any state law that he waives during this emergency, if it goes beyond 30-day mark, it has to have legislative approval. And so I'm trying to make sure that people know that. We are in contact with his office pretty much daily. And as a general rule, I really try to be supportive because I don't think this is a time for politics or partisanship. This is a time for us to all work together. And overall, I think we're doing a pretty good job right now. One of my biggest recommendations to the governor that I'm encouraging him to start talking about is how do we get Washington back to work? What is our back to work plan? What are the conditions that we need to meet and that we consider success so that we can start allowing certain industries to reopen? And I haven't heard him talk a lot about that, and I really am interested to hear his thoughts on it. Speaking of industries, we did have some luck in getting portions of industry opened up recently. Just over the last week, we got residential real estate was reopened. That was a good success story there, I think. We're able to do that safely. We're working on a number of other industries right now, and the two of them that kind of come to mind are car sales and residential construction. So far, we've not been able to have any success in that. You know, if we can open those two areas up in a safe manner to avoid contamination, then I think we need to get as many people working as we can. I want you to know that there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. And I can say that if you're in an industry that has a lobbyist right now, you should send them a note of encouragement because they are working hard on your behalf right now. They are advocating for you. I'd like to set some expectations for what I think it's going to look like as we come out of this crisis. And I'm not certain how it's going to happen or when it's going to happen, but I would expect that on the back end, it's going to be phased over time with certain sectors and activities being reopened bit by bit. I don't think for 1 minute that it's going to be basically like we're flipping a light switch and life's going to go back to normal. So I just want you to be mentally prepared for this. Life is not going to go back to normal for some time. I'm not sure what our farmers markets are going to look like. The state fair, concerts, all of that's kind of up in the air right now as we kind of work our way through this. This is a pandemic, and it seems really large. And it seems like so many things are just out of our control these days. And there's plenty of people talking about policy. And so at this point, I kind of like to switch from policy to a key message that I'd like to share. And because this thing is so big and because so many people are feeling like their lives are out of control, I just like to share 3 things with you that I think you can do to control the controllable things in your life. And this is a short version. I recorded a video about this yesterday, and I'm going to publish it on my website later this week, so you can go and look at it. But I just want to share this message with you, because during times like these, I think there's only one thing that's more contagious than that virus, and that's fear. And that's coming at us from all directions these days. It's coming at us on the TV, on the radio, on social media. It's coming everywhere. Fear and panic are permeating our society today. And quite honestly, nobody makes good decisions when they're panicked. So the first thing I think you can do is I think you can exercise some control over the things that you feed your body, your mind, and your spirit. You know, as we're inside of our houses and we're ingesting news 24/7, everybody's talking about the latest wrinkle in this virus, in this epidemic, and they're looking to place blame. If you consume that 24/7, it's going to bear bad fruit within you. Turn it off for a little while. Put Facebook down. Do something healthy. Grab that book that you've been meaning to read. Crack open the Bible. Play a game with your kid. Exercise. Cook a healthy meal. You know, you can't control the stay-at-home order, but you can control how you stay healthy. And I encourage you to do that. The next thing I think you can absolutely control is how you act toward other people. So many of our friends and neighbors are hurting, and emotions are raw. And some people may not be expressing themselves in the kindest manner. So just take a breath, calm down, exercise extraordinary levels of social grace and kindness these days. You don't know what the other person's going through. We need to forgive one another. We need to remember that relationships are important. We're in this together, and we should act accordingly. Again, you know, you can't control someone else's actions, but you can definitely control your actions. And finally, I think you can exercise some control over how you run your individual households. You control your schedule. You determine if you wake up in the morning, shower, shave, dress, do your chores, or if you lounge around in your pajamas all day. You control how you manage your finances. And I go into detail in the video about what I would do if I were in one of 3 financial categories right now. And I'm not a financial analyst. I'm not qualified. That's not my job. But from talking to people all throughout the 25th Legislative District, it seems like there's basically 3 groupings of people. And the first are those who have lost their job. They're without a job. And there's about 6.5 million Americans right now who are without a job. So if you're in that category, you're not alone. The second is those who have employment, but they're worried about the future. Maybe they don't have a lot of savings. They don't know how long that job's gonna hold out. And you can watch the video if you're interested in what I want to say about those. But the third group are those who still have some income and still maybe they have some savings. Those people who are doing well. And I just want to touch on that area and say that if I were in that third category, what would I do right now? So the first thing I'd do is I'd realize how very fortunate I was, and I would remember that business that supported a cause that I liked or that's been supportive of my community. And I would do what I could to support them these days. Maybe I'd buy a gift card from them or whatever I could do to support them. I donate to a charity. I would double, triple, or quadruple my tips to service providers these days. Can you imagine the impact that a $100 tip could have on a single mother who's trying to make ends meet these days? I'd remember that each dollar that I spend today is a blessing to someone, and I would spread as many blessings as I possibly could. You know, we've not written the last chapter in this book. It's still ongoing. We're still working, all of us together, to chart a course to safe harbor, and we will get there. We've been through hard times before. But until then, I'd encourage you to focus on controlling the controllable within your lives. Control how you feed your mind, your body, and your spirit. Control how you act to others. and control how you manage your individual households. I hope that this little message brings some peace and some hope in these crazy times. And I definitely invite you to contact me offline. You can easily find my email on the webpage. And finally, I'd just like to say that it's an absolute honor serving you. Thank you.
Well, I would certainly say your message brought tear to my eyes and I'm sure filled a lot of hearts here. Your legislative update is appreciated, but certainly your are poignant and meaningful, and you're just a class act and a great speaker to this community. So thank you very much for that. We are going to move on next to Betty Capestany. Pierce County does have benefits available for businesses in the unincorporated areas of Pierce County, and I sounded to learn that South Hill particularly has had sort of a low showing of applicants for that benefit. So we felt compelled to bring Betty Capestany on one more time and to speak more poignantly about that specific benefit. So, Betty, thank you so much for being here.
Sure, thank you, Tara, and also to all of our listeners out there. We appreciate your resilience, and from the county and all of our different areas of resource, we're just trying to help all of our employers try to be as connected as possible to their employees through this COVID crisis. So what we've established for the unincorporated areas of Pierce County is a small business relief loan program, and businesses that have 10 employees or fewer that are physically located in unincorporated Pierce County. They've been in operation for a year, and they could show COVID impacts of a 25% reduction in revenue are eligible for funds. This is a loan program that basically is no interest, and it goes for a year, so it's payable a year from when the loan is accepted. So appreciate any of you on the line. If you know people in the businesses in the unincorporated area that this might be something that helps them through the process, please have them go to our Pierce County Economic Development website. There's a downloadable form. It's very easy to fill out. And we're trying to be really quick on our turnaround time to getting those loans out to the community.
Excellent. So a reminder to everyone, we have both Betty Capestany and Gary Wescott. They've actually been on all of our calls each week. We've tried to feature different panelists just to kind of hear from different episodes. So please, I know a lot of you may have questions that are geared towards the county, so don't hesitate to ask them towards the end. They're both there and available to answer them. So we are going to move on next. Hello, I didn't fall, just my computer did. We are going to move on next to Captain Darrin. There's two reasons we brought him on today. Certainly, we want to thank he and his team. They are really first responders out there dealing with who knows what on a daily basis. And so we want to hear a little bit about what that looks like. We also have a program that I'm anxious to share with all of you. It's called Chip In with the Chamber. And essentially what kind of spawned this is we've had a number of people reach out to us wondering how they can help some first responders, healthcare workers, provide lunch, provide gift cards. We were connecting people directly and found that we could certainly be a great convener right now by creating a donation site on our website that will allow anyone to go on and just, even if it's $10 to pay for one lunch, $2, $20, $100, essentially once a week we'll choose a recipient. In this case, it is Central Pierce Fire and Rescue Department. They're stationed in Puyallup. I believe it's station 66, 71, 72, and 73, and they will all be getting pizza from Trackside Pizza on us. And I say us, this great community that has really been pouring on the donations ever since the site went live yesterday. So we're here to announce that to Darrin Shaw, Captain Shaw, which he knows about, is mighty grateful for. But just also want to remind all of you listening that is a new program. You can go to wallupsumnerchamber.com/chip-in to make a donation, and we'll switch up next week to another business that we'll order food from and a recipient that we will share our love and appreciation to. So without further ado, Captain Darrin Shaw, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Tara, and thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon. And I just want to say thank you from all of us for the outstanding community support we've seen over the past weeks. It's been incredible, from Facebooks to emails to people dropping things off. It's just been incredible. So we're so thankful for our community and our community support. On the fire department side, our staff and our administration realized the seriousness early on, and so we implemented APRs, which are probably the masks you've seen that are pink and blue. They're more of a
Sorry, I missed that.
they're more of a commercial mask. And thankfully, we don't have anybody that has this today that have been diagnosed with it, so that's awesome. And then what we've really been doing is pushing out things from the Pierce County Health Department as far as, staying safe, and anything the health department puts out, we push it back out on our social media. We reach about 30,000 to 40,000 people a day. We have a large following on our social media, which is great. We've also been doing math with a firefighter, which we'll do firefighters out in the App Bay. One day they figured out how long the firefighters were, and then they actually measured it up. Then the next day they weighed each fire engine, and then they had to total the amount the fire engines weighed and then figure out how many tons that was. So we're trying to reach the kids who are at home, and on the several other safety messages. And again, we just want to thank our community for the outstanding support we've seen over the past few weeks. And then, another shout out to Tacoma RV. They donated 6 brand new 2020 RVs that we have at our new station in the city of Puyallup. They're there just in case they're needed for isolation for our firefighters. So in the case that they're needed, they're there. And thankfully, we haven't used them, and I hope we don't have to use them, but I just want to shout out to Tacoma RV for donating those awesome RVs. That's it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Captain Shaw. I tell you, I think I need to start journaling all the wonderful, generous acts that are happening on a daily basis here. Every single day I hear a new story, and obviously those are, once again, the silver linings and all of this. So that is fantastic. Thanks for giving them a shout out. So one other thing I like to do when we conduct these panels is hear from either a community partner or a business check in. The Washington State Fair is a major presence. They are iconic, certainly in this area, and just wanted to have Renee, McClain, CFO of the fair, here today. She's also our chair-elect for the Puyallup Sumner Chamber Board. Give us just a quick update on what's going on with the fair and employees and anything else you might want us to know about. Renee?
All right. So, can you hear me, Tara?
We sure can.
Okay. So yeah, basically we were early on in this whole COVID-19 situation, as a ban on events of 250 came early on March 11th. So basically at that point, we canceled all of our events through March, contemplating what the next piece was going to be. And then on March 23rd, the stay-at-home order came out through April 6th. And basically with the schools closures going through April 24th, we thought it was prudent that we actually cancel our spring fair, which is difficult for the fair to do that from the standpoint of the loss of revenue, but also that our mission and our goal is to be that gathering place for about 150,000 people that come to our spring fair. We have canceled all of our events through the end of April, assuming that even if a stay-at-home order isn't extended, the ban will continue. And so we have 27 events that we've canceled to date, which is, hard on not just the fair, but the event producers, our partners. We have 50 full-time, another 70 part-time employees that work with us, probably about 500 during the spring fair. So a burden, to all of those people, to the city, the community as well, for the revenue that's not flowing in there. We are keeping the fairgrounds, we have our essential services and those things going on, security, and trying to just make sure that that is secure. The police has been great in looking at our parking lots and keeping them safe. And we are kind of with everybody else waiting for whatever the next piece of information is going to be from the governor, to see if it goes, beyond what period of time, so we can make our next planning steps. And also just being a nonprofit, considered in that small business, we're looking at ways to protect our employees kind of more in the long term. And whether that be the payroll protection program, whether that be, different things through employment security. So we're out there with everybody else researching and looking into all of that. I can't hear you. Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
I love that it actually flashed on my screen. It knew I was trying to speak. So thank you, Renee, for that update. We do have some questions rolling in, so we will move to that portion of the program. David Montevideo is asking, probably Dr. Chen, I'm thinking, how many kits are available to our county? Oh, you might need to unmute yourself as these questions come in, or maybe we could try to unmute all the speakers there.
Right, so there is a relative shortage of testing kits throughout the area and nationwide. However, in general, it appears that they're actually enough. We don't know the total number of kits available. I think in the press recently, there was the issue around the leftover testing kits from our Tacoma Dome event. We had about 1,400 kits left from that. And we finally got approval yesterday for us to distribute that throughout the community. So we have a plan that will, we want to make sure it gets to rural areas, places where it's a little bit harder for people to access the test. We also want to make sure the small doctor's offices and providers will have access to the test. We want to ensure that first responders have access to the test. And also another group that we're very concerned about are people who are living in congregate care facilities, nursing facilities. So from that event, we have about 1,400 kits that we will be distributing in the near future.
Okay, thanks for answering that. I think this question goes to you again, Dr. Chen. There seems to be, I guess, some kind of mixed messaging lately about is it best to wear a mask? I know initially we were all told that it's best to let the healthcare providers have them and those on the front line, but I feel like a lot of information has surfaced recently where folks are thinking they need to have a mask. What is your advisement at this point?
So currently the national guidance still is not for people, or not for everyone to wear a mask. There in general, kind of two types of masks. One is more of the, the surgical masks. Those are the more normal masks you might see doctors wearing. Those are the ones that are more, a little bit more widely available. And then there are what I call N95 masks, which are the masks which filter at a much higher efficiency rate. And people need to realize that way back, if you go back in history, the reason that doctors started wearing masks was to protect their patients. Now, when people did surgeries in the old days, well, first of all, they didn't wash their hands, they didn't wear gloves, and they didn't have masks. So the masks were part of the attempt to prevent doctors from spreading their bacteria to patients. So masks are extremely effective in reducing, in blocking the droplets that a sick person would have, like when they sneeze or when they have a runny nose. they're very effective in preventing them from spreading the illness. The masks are not as effective in preventing the people wearing the mask from getting sick. However, people who are like physicians, respiratory therapists, nurses who have to work very closely with sick people, even though the masks are not as effective at preventing people from getting sick, it's very important they do wear them because they're in very high risk exposures. Now, on top of all that, as you know, there's a nationwide shortage of personal protective equipment. So those are masks and gowns and so on. So first of all, people need to understand what they're doing, how effective it is, and then also they need to do that in the context of what the national shortage is. What you're referring to is there has been chatter, for example, that in healthcare settings in China, when they went to an all masking policy, they seemed to reduce the infections in the healthcare professionals. That's certainly a very different strategy than asking the public to wear a mask. In China, they did go to a public masking policy because at that time, that's such a big outbreak, and they wanted to make sure that if someone got sick and they didn't quite know they were sick and they could potentially be spreading the virus, that then they would protect other people from getting sick from them, okay? We also know that a lot of people don't wear masks properly. You're probably seeing pictures where people, their mask is up to here and the nose is poking out, and that really defeats the purpose, right? So the people don't wear it properly. We know that there's a lot of hoarding of N95 masks, and N95 masks actually need to be fitted because everyone's face is a little different. There are different companies that make them. If you don't wear a fitted mask that fits you, then there'll be leakage around the edges of the mask. So one of the challenges with everyone wearing masks is not only do they not wear properly, but then some of them believe they're now super protected and they start doing things that we don't want them to do. So they will start congregating in groups. They will start, ignoring some of the protections they normally should do. So there is some conversation about whether all healthcare workers should wear it. And then and I think there's a more compelling argument for that. And then there's separate conversations about whether the public should wear it. And at this time, there's not a recommendation for the public to wear it.
Great. So we also have a question. I'm going to mute this first one.
I can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Yes, but there's a lot of feedback.
All right, I'm gonna go back to the other one. Okay, sorry, I'm getting a few messages that when I speak it is broken up and it could just be our Wi-Fi here, unfortunately. I will try logging in next time directly to our internet modem if we are not already on that one now. I was also asked to remind folks where to send their questions. Please send them to admin@PuyallupSumnerChamber.com. When you mentioned, Dr. Chen, manufacturers creating these PPEs, I want to mention that House Representative Kelly Chambers reached out to us this morning. There still is a call to action for manufacturers to assist in this process. So we are compiling a group of our manufacturers within our membership to make that ask. Certainly any of you who have contacts, I hope you would make that ask as well. I want to say that I just recently heard that One Sleep, I see you, Chad, you have joined in that effort to create and help in some capacity with that. So thank you so much, One Sleep. You guys are wonderful. We have other questions. We have one is for Chris Gildon. What about commercial landscaping? So I'm going to see if reference Chris Thompson was asking. And so at some point, I'm sure, so what about commercial landscaping? Also, will small business owners be able to get unemployment? So those are questions for, yep.
Yeah, so there's a number of different efforts going on right now to open up different sectors of society. I mean, uh, commercial real estate, for example, uh, fishing, just for fun, going out to the lake and going fishing. It seems like you're kind of social distancing if you're doing that. Maybe some of these activities that we can open up, and as landscaping seems to be one of them that could be a logical thing to open up because you can exercise social distancing. Certainly there's ways that you can do that safely. And so again, as much of our economy as we can open up, the faster the better, I think, and get this economic engine tuned up and moving again. I'm not sure of all of the benefits that are out there because so much information is coming in so fast. One of the most recent things that's really been intriguing to me is the Paycheck Protection Program, which is part of the CARES Act, which seems to be open to just all kinds of people, businesses, veterans organizations, independent contractors, all kind of stuff. And I'm sure we could probably put a link up on the webpage somewhere, but there's so many resources out there that I encourage you just go to the webpage. I have it on my webpage. I'm sure the chamber does as well. The governor has a resource webpage. It almost seems like we're drowning in information overload right now. But I encourage you to reach out to some of those. And if you have specifics, reach out to myself or Tara or some of the other folks at the chamber, and we'll be glad to help you.
Great, thank you. We have a question here from Rick. What contingencies exist should Good Samaritan run out of bed space? That's probably a question for Dr. Chen. I'll also mention that I got that question answered for me yesterday in the form of a really helpful resource website. It's covid19.healthdata.org. You can in our specific state, and it'll really outline how prepared we are. I know that when they're looking at data and projections, that as far as regular beds go, at the time we hit our peak, regular beds we actually will have in surplus, which was really good news, talk about preparedness. And then when we hit our peak, and again, that peak period, according to this data and this chart, is going to be at, well, April 17th is one of the latest reports I saw. But when we talk about ICU beds, there is a shortage. It wasn't huge, but there is a shortage. And when I say huge, under 100. Obviously, I think everyone's preparing for the worst extreme as well, but I know that the folks from Multicare that provided this, that provided, I guess, myself some comfort, and those that I've shared it with, some comfort that as far as our state, we seem pretty prepared. Now, Dr. Chen may completely contradict me here, but I did want to put that reference point out and go ahead and let you in.
Right, so we have been doing a lot of planning to try to avoid the hospitals running out of space, right? And as I mentioned earlier, the whole reason we're doing all this community mitigation and social distancing is so we don't overwhelm the healthcare system. I want to let you know that when I've talked with both Multicare and CHI Franciscans, they're all very comfortable where they are. They feel that they have the capacity. If you remember, the governor did order a stop to all elective surgeries, and that has helped keep the census in the hospital down. Both of the healthcare systems have also instituted, they've identified particular triage and testing centers, and that has led to significant drops in their ER visits. So right now we're looking like in Pierce County that we're going to be okay in our hospital capacity. Now, of course, there are other things we're trying to do. So I mentioned the temporary care centers. One of the things they will be doing would be if someone was in the hospital and was sick. And right now, I remember talking to one of the hospitals, and they're saying that very day, he had 7 or 8 people sitting in the hospital who could go home, but they didn't have a good home situation to go to. So the temporary care centers, for example, would once we get those operational, would be a place where we could send those 7 or 8 patients to recover, right? there's also thought that at some point you're seeing this go up in King County in the CenturyLink exhibition hall there. They put in a field hospital. And the idea there is if things get really crazy and the hospitals are going to get overloaded, that they would put their non-COVID-19 patients in that facility. Mm-hmm. Again, decompressing the hospitals. There's also a lot of creative stuff going on now in places like New York where they're really getting slammed. They have found ways to put more than one patient on the ventilator at one time. So they're conserving resources. Some of the other steps that they've planned for are, some of the hospitals in the area do take children, and then to move all the kids out to either Mary Bridge or Children's Hospital in Seattle so that those rooms could be converted into adult rooms. So many steps being taken. We hope we don't need to get to the point of them actually running out of space, but we certainly have planned in that direction.
Okay. Good to know. And so there was another question. It says, to Dr. Chen and Representative Gildon, what can small business owners do aside from individual and independent efforts to help support a coordinated effort to ensure stabilization of the economy and financial healing, rather than being information and financial resources? Essentially, what can small businesses do to help shore up our community?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that. You kind of broke up as you were reading the question.
I'll try again. Essentially, the question is, aside from the resources that are being provided to businesses, is there anything that businesses can do to help shore up our communities? The stabilization of our economy, financial healing.
That's a broad question,
Yeah.
What can we do in a time of crisis? And I've got great faith in our economic engine and our business. And I was on the phone earlier yesterday with the lobbyists for the Association of Washington Business and NFIB and a couple of other ones. And believe me, they're all working really hard to find solutions for this right now. But sometimes as we're going through these things, all you can do is all you can do. And if you're out there working and you're doing everything that you can do, just know that right now that's enough. All you can do right now, that's enough. Rest assured that we know that you're moving in the right directions. We know that you're working hard, and we've got faith in you. And I'm encouraging people to get out and spend those dollars, send those blessings to people throughout our community, and let's open as much of our economy as we possibly can, and let's get through this. So, but thank you for the question.
Great. I know that from the chamber, we are trying to reach out to each and every member. Lindsay's been making those phone calls, and part of what we're asking of others, aside from just checking in, is trying to determine if there is a way that business to business either services can be exchanged, or if we really feel that what is paining someone right now can be resolved by becoming together. We're really trying to be proactive and think of ways to do that. So when we talk about communities helping communities, that's one thing the chamber is doing. Renee McClain has her hand held. I'm impressed. What is your question, Renee? Unmute you. Go ahead, you are unmuted, yes.
I just wanted to say that I probably received 20 different emails from different resources talking about what's going on with all of the different federal packages and different things going on. And probably at least 75% of them, the document that's included in there is from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. That is the resource that these companies who are professional companies in different areas are using as a resource. Again, coming back to the importance of chambers, as a whole, as a resource for business on the national level, and then as that filters down to all of our communities.
I really appreciate you saying that. I echo that sentiment. I too am getting a lot of information, but often the information from the U.S. Chamber really is, Mnuchin is sitting often in those rooms on some of the task force phone calls. We're hearing, directly from the White House. We're hearing about the lobbying and advocating on all of your behalfs that's happening, and really trying to do our best to message it back to you. I know something they're working very hard on is to eliminate payroll taxes for 3 months. They're really just trying in every which way to swing at this and to try to be helpful to businesses. So do pay attention to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce information, and that's a big part of what we're pushing out to you as well. There's a question here. Can anyone tell me where I would go to see where to place bids on their need for beds and mattresses? To Sally, that's from Sally. I know I see Chad on the phone. I'm not sure if that's directed at you, but I'll ask what's in front of me. I don't. Sally, if you can, I guess, clarify your question. We all know that a great source for mattresses is One Sleep, and they're doing a lot for our community. And if anyone in these times is in need of one for whatever particular reason, as an emergency necessity, I don't know if One Sleep is open. I don't know if that's part of your question. Chad, you can just answer that question if you're open.
So there's got to be a website or somewhere to go to place bids for needed materials that are gonna for these field hospitals. So okay. You see what I'm saying? So where do you go to place that bid?
Okay.
Who knows the
that?
answer to that?
I don't know that.
This is Anthony Chen. For the field hospitals like the one up in Century Link, my understanding those come prepackaged. That these are military assets which are transportable. I mean, their intention is for them to be able to go into a combat area and drop the hospital in. So my understanding is they're already prepackaged assets.
Okay. So they already have all these things.
Right. Now that's a little different than what I think up in Shoreline, King County put in their own facility in an arena. And so I'm not quite sure how they did that. But then I'm not, it may not be normal beds that they use, that they may have certain kind of modular type furniture they use. And I have no idea how you bid on those, but that probably would be something. So right now in Pierce County, there isn't an effort like that, but in King County, typically the Emergency Operations Center will have a logistics or finance administrative section. But I can tell you it's really challenging. Like for me, I don't know how many emails I get every day with vendors from around the world emailing me, trying to sell me something because they know I'm the head of the health department. So if you have a way to, actually what may be helpful is like Puyallup has an emergency operations center. If you contacted someone in the city, if they could tell you who the logistics person contact is up in King County for that Shoreline thing. Now, they may have built it out already, so I don't know. But typically what would happen is in their ICS, that's who would handle.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Great. All right, well, we are at the hour here. I also wanted to mention, we have Ryan Windish on the line from the city of Sumner and also Meredith Hill for the city of Puyallup. If there's any particular questions directed to the city you'd like us to get answered for you, I want to make sure you were aware that the city had representation and was here to answer as well if needed. So thank you again for tuning in. Thank you to our panelists, and stay tuned next week. We will have Congressman Denny Heck here, along with the Senior VP of Columbia Bank, Scott Bosom, on the line. So next week will be that important week where now the banks have been tasked with helping to facilitate some of these SBA loans. So they'll have they've been getting trained this week. So by next week, we should really have that good meeting on how this massive amount of money they needed to kind of get out to you obviously so much money is a cumbersome task. So thank you for your patience. I know we're all waiting to see how that unrolls, but it sounds like next week we'll know a lot more, and we're happy to have Scott with us next week. So again, thank you all for being here. Stay whole and stay healthy. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank
You
you.
bet. Just fixing it.